You know the vibes. Welcome back to another episode of the Hoop Genius podcast brought to you by NBA 2K26. It's myself, Mooncey, and alongside me as always, the legendary Coach Brendan Suhr. And we've got another special guest for you today. I call him your favorite player's favorite coach. No offense, Coach Suhr. But we have Coach Dave Fizdale on the show today. Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Coach Fizz is one of my favorite coaches.
That's
too.
my guy right there.
Yeah.
Well,
so
you know, we had the great Bob Delaney on the show a few weeks ago. Legendary referee.
Love
He told the
Bob.
story of, he's great.
Yeah.
He told the story of how he infiltrated the mafia before joining the NBA. But I believe, Fizz, that you were part of your own mafia, but a
Yes,
very
I
different
am.
type
Yes, I
before
am.
anyone gets confused.
A
Would you like to
legal
enlighten our viewers
mafia.
here?
very true.
Legal,
Very
yes. Go ahead. Tell us a little bit about how you came up and the mafia.
Well,
that
I
you
was
were
lucky
part of.
enough. You know, it's funny how I was thinking about it too after we talked a little earlier, like how you end up landing in places, you know, and it only happens because I'm an average high school player. So I end up at USD, below little mid-major, below mid-major school. You know, I'm being recruited by Randy Bennett and Kyle Smith, who's now at Washington, and Hank Egan was the head coach. Todd Lee, who's with Muss at USC. Those are the guys that recruited me. And I ended up at USD. I didn't even take another visit. I was so sure that that was the place for me. And I had Santa Clara was my next visit. They ended up okay. They got Steve Nash. So
They did all right.
You know, you end up landing where you land, and
Yep.
you know, it just so happens that the Bernie Bickerstaff went to college there and was a player and a coach there, and man, he ended up creating an incredible, you know, brotherhood. And it started with Mike Brown, and it filtered to Chris Grant, Neil Meyer, myself. You know, like we said earlier, you know, Muss had his dad kind of to navigate the NBA, but still part of that mafia. James Borrego was a walk-on at USD. And we all came because Bernie opened up the door for Mike Brown and a couple other guys. And those guys started opening doors for others. You know, I think about how far it stretched for me. You know, I get my first assistant coaching job at Golden State with Eric Musselman.
Right.
I get my second assistant coaching job with the Atlanta Hawks and Mike Woodson, but Chris Grant's the assistant GM.
Right.
These guys are getting me indoors and introducing me and bringing me along. You know, Mike Brown introduced me to Eric Spoelstra. So when you call it, you know, like we joke and call it the mafia, but we really have built a family, you know, through our connection of basketball and you know, brotherhood. And we all share in you know, the same love for the game and the same care for our university, even though right now we're struggling a little bit. But, you know, we're invested, and we invest in each other. We check on each other. We root for each other. I just got off the phone with Chris Grant. You know, it's just how it is. Like we're always in connection and in communication. And it's really a cool thing because none of us played in the NBA. None of us was good enough to play in the NBA. But we were all willing to go through the hard part of the grind to get to the top of the NBA. Every one of us went through the internship in the video room and worked our way through the video room into scouting, into assistant player development, all the way up the ladder, you know. And Chris Grant was so talented, he could have coached or did the front office. Like, people don't realize that Chris Grant's an incredible basketball mind that really knows how to teach the game. He was in the gym with us with Coach Gerg at Gerg Camp working. Like, he was hitting bigs, he was wrestling, he was teaching, but he's a GM. And that, you know,
Right.
that was his path. And so, you know, we were just really fortunate. You know, it's just such a rare thing. You know, I can't even explain it. Like, where else do you see, you know, that many people come from a school, but none of them are good enough to play in the NBA, you know, and we all end up impacting the league and impacting players' lives and trying to enhance the league the best we could, and still are doing it.
Man, it sounds like I should have gone to USD as well.
Hey, man,
You should.
never too late.
The entrance requirement's a little stiff there, Mo. I'm sorry. You know, one of the things, I've been doing this 55 years, started 47 years ago in the NBA in Atlanta.
Unbelievable.
It's all about, I've never had a resume. And I always tell coaches, you do not need a resume. You need relationships. And Chuck Daly told me one time, you'll never get a job with a resume. You'll get them through social contacts and relationships. And I think back to my path, and everyone that also I touched, it's the same thing. You have the great Randy Bennett,
Oh,
maybe one of the greatest coaches ever in U.S. basketball, in my opinion, because he coaches the same way every freaking year.
it's just
Defense, rebounding, fundamental. I love the guy, and I
phenomenal.
don't even know him, but all his family members, like yourself, David, Patrick, all these guys, they serve at the altar of.
Randy Bennett.
And right, Kyle, Todd Golden. I mean,
All of
it's
those
an
guys.
endless.
Yeah.
It's endless. So what on your relationships? You're a huge relationship person, both with players, coaches, and everything. How does one go about developing relationships, Fizz?
Honestly, I think it all of it starts, I've learned at least, with trust. And how I built trust was I did the job in front of me. I never was worried about who had this job, or this guy's getting paid more, or this guy's, because they told me right away, like Gerg and Spo and just the whole, luckily I was an intern in Miami. So I had no choice but to dig into what I was into, right? And when you do your work with that kind of attention and focus and not worry about what's next, where your brain always wants to go, I think people start to trust you. And they see that you're doing the job you're doing with care. And then once you have the trust of, someone who really is making decisions and is impacted by the decisions that's being made, you can start giving input. You can start bringing ideas to the table. It doesn't matter whether that's a head coach or whether that was a player I was working out, whoever it was. Doing the job I had allowed me to begin to, connect with people. And that's kind of always been my formula. I never try to put the cart before the horse with that. And I think only once in my career did I really fail at really solidifying the trust with a player. But you learn from that, and you learn, you get better from that if you're open and you can own your side of what went wrong. You just grow from that. But I always felt like, do your job really hard, do it well, and whoever, you need to be able to impact, they'll see that and they'll want your input. They'll want to know what you think about a situation. It's crazy. My guy, Kevin Durant, not the name drop, but I just got off a FaceTime with him. Now he's in Houston now, right? I coached him 2 years in Phoenix. But you get the call that, he just had a son. And
wow, it's KD.
It's beautiful. And it's like, this guy's sharing this with me, and I don't even work out with him anymore,
That's cool.
But
that is
for
cool.
2 years, we were in that gym in the morning, every day, doing the work. And I never forced opinions on him. I was just showing up. I would show up. And then after a while, this 37-year-old first balloter would go, "Hey, Fizz, what do you think? What about this? How about this?" And then it would be, okay, now that he's asking me, here's the film to what you said. Here's the stuff you want to look at. Here's how we can put this whole idea to the team. And here's how we can bring Ryan Dunn into this. And all of a sudden, it just turns into this beautiful thing. But it starts with me just showing up every day and doing what he needs me to do for that moment. Not asking him for shoes, not asking him for a sign a jersey, not doing, that's all of the stuff that can get in the way of building trust. right? And so
Exactly.
I just think that that's the formula to great relationships.
That's awesome.
I'm trying to do it in my marriage. It's every relationship is how you solidify that trust and constantly keep building on those things where people know you're reliable and that you're going to give them the truth.
Yeah, I know you say you don't want to name drop, but amongst the kind of media and the fans, they know you as the LeBron whisperer because LeBron James has a great admiration for you, and you guys had a great relationship. You were the assistant coach at the Miami Heat whilst he was there.
That's so laughable.
Can you talk a bit about that connection you had with LeBron?
We got a great connection. Bron is I was so lucky to cross paths with him twice professionally, but we never broke ties personally just because of those reasons we talked about. I'm very protective of him. I think that's one thing that he knows. I think out of whether I know what I'm doing or not, he knows that his legacy was always at the forefront of my mind when it came to winning and what we needed to do to win and what he needed to work on to win. And so that's what I always kept in front of us. And I think he appreciated that his legacy was that important to me. We had to, Bron early on was not easy because he was so guarded. He was coming from where he was beloved to now he was the most hated sports athlete, in America, maybe in the world, during that stretch. And so, I kind of eased into that relationship. I let him see my work with D Wade and the time that I was putting into D Wade's work and the detail that I was putting into it. To kind of, how it's kind of like little kids, man. They see you over there playing and having fun. That little kid over there, he kind of like, oh, let me try this. Let me see if these guys are. And scoots over this way, right? And so he saw that. And D Wade obviously was an easy conduit to connect us because it was like, look, man, this guy came to me in 2008. This is how I played. Now I do all of this. And and it just happened to be the one thing that Bron really needed to add, which was his post game. And so I already had two guys in Joe Johnson and Dwyane Wade that was telling, Bron, listen, this dude, he know his stuff. And he's going to tell you the truth. And I think once Bron saw that, how protective I was, how prepared I was, we just started connecting. And that team was really close in general. And just, we'd had to lean on each other because the outside world was just so hard on that team and just beat that team down. And, so we really tried to pick each other up as much as possible. And, it wasn't just me having that relationship with Bron. It was Spo, it was all of us. We all had really, we hooked in together. The players, the coaches, Dan Craig, great coach in Chicago, who came out of our camp, all of those guys, we all was Juwan Howard. We were so connected. Your guy, Ronnie Rothstein, my dude who brought me through the Heat culture, Bob McAdoo, all of these guys, like, we just leaned on each other. And I think Bron saw that and he came into that, and it really was like the perfect thing that he needed to elevate himself. Because right there, he was kind of like at a place where he didn't know. It was a lot of uncertainty and he
didn't know in terms of what, sorry?
The championship. He hadn't got a ring, come to Miami. And you had lost to the Spurs. You've been knocked out a couple times. And, it's a lot of uncertainty. And are you just blaming your teammates? No. He didn't come in with that mindset saying that to us like, oh, my guys in Cleveland suck. Nah, he was like, man, I love those guys. He brought Ilgauskas with him. Like, he loved his teammates in Cleveland. But he knew that he needed something different if he wanted to get to where he wanted to get to in his legacy. And he took that risk, which is a huge leap when players weren't doing that. And he, for him to do that and trust us and for it to turn out the way it did, it's hard to leave two on the table, but to get two out of it was a great accomplishment.
How was the mindset different? Because, when he signed with the Heat, right, and you guys are super excited he's coming over to the squad, he's done the press conference where he says not one, not two, not three, so on and so forth, right? So there's loads of confidence going into that season. And then to fall to Dallas in the finals in the way in which he did, possibly the worst series we've ever seen LeBron play in. What was the mindset shift over that summer after the loss to Dallas?
Well, it was all of us. It started with Spo. The next day we met, heartbroken, and Spo was like, we didn't help Bron because we were still, this, Brendan, we were still running first big to the strong side post, trail big, drags and downs, roll replace action. Well, that's death for the guy with the ball, right? Like he's driving into bigs every time he tries to go early. And so we kind of helped Dallas defend him with the way we were playing. And that was typical Miami Heat. That was our system for years.
Sure.
We was just doing what we do. But the league had been changing, and Dallas, they got ahead of the offense, and they started playing janky 2-3 zone, that great zone Casey had put in. Dwayne Casey had a great matchup 2-3 and they got Jason Kidd, smart ass, sitting up there screwing with you. Sometimes he's switching on the pick, sometimes he's getting over the pick, sometimes he's under the pick, and and then they just packed it in and forced Bron to be a jump shooter. And so we went into literally the next morning. I went into the office. I couldn't sleep. It's like 6, 7 in the morning. Spo's car is still there. Turns out he never left. He cried his eyes out all night. I cried my eyes out. We get into the office, and he's like, all of our egos is out of this. How do we win it? What do we have to do to help LeBron and Dwyane be LeBron and Dwyane? And he and I sat in that office, I don't know, damn near the whole day on the board, 5 out, open up the floor. Like we went total Nelly. We went straight Nelly with it. It was like 5 out. We got to space the floor for these guys. We also made a pact with them that he and Dwyane, they were going to shoot their all-time lowest number of threes. Because we were going to post them so much at that. Because the first year, Bron wasn't posting really. Right. By the second year, that's when he unleashed hell on the whole league. Because he was so angry and so full of rage that his post game and his physical, just his whole physical nature, he attacked the game with that new spacing, unleashed something to him. And by the end of that year, we were playing Chris Bosh at the 5. And that's when it really transformed everything. And, we also were willing to mix in some switching, which was not a Miami Heat thing. We were like, we don't switch. And that's, but we had to get uncomfortable. We had to get out of the normal if we want, because that team wasn't normal. And so, unfortunately we suffered one, but the next 2 don't happen if the first one doesn't, I don't think. So, that was kind of our mindset, is like, it was a growth mindset is the best way I could put it. It was a growth mindset. That's exactly the word that
I think to be a really good coach in this league, you have to have that growth mindset. And that's what Spo has.
Constant.
Yeah. I just want to talk about, you've coached so many incredible players, since Mo was talking about the players you've coached, all future Hall of Famers. From D Wade, Bosh is already, D Wade is, but Bronny is going to be. And I mean, it's just a joke how many you guys. What I've found with the Hall of Famers that I've had, and this is what people think, that if you have great players, that's easy. They are the most demanding son of a guns of all time. And if you don't know your shit, they discard you. If you don't have the goods to help them, that's it. You get like one shot. I found with that.
That's the truth. And we had a thing, I wouldn't walk on the court with paper. That's how well I had to know it. It had to be a part of what, my DNA when I was teaching it. A scout, I should know them without look, because they needed to see that. They needed to know you knew it that well, because the reality is you're looking at the paper, putting us through all of this. You have the paper, but you're asking us to remember this and not have a piece of paper. So, and that's how they function. They're like, well, if you're asking us to be that high level, you need to be that high level. And so we really made a real early on. I know we made a conscious effort to be over prepared when it came to, because stars will pick through it. They'll pick through it. They'll well, what if this and what if that? And then because they don't want to just show you how talented they are playing. They want to show you how smart they are too. So they'll tear your stuff apart if you're not prepared, and if your stuff isn't detailed and thoughtful, they carve it to pieces.
Fizz, I remember when I first went to work in Detroit for Chuck, and for 10 years working for UB and Fratello and doing the scouts, we were always incredibly prepared. And then all of a sudden I go to do the very first scout I do there, and we're playing the Knicks, and I say, okay, they're going to run this side pick and roll, and Isaiah's guarding, and Lambier's going to guard Patrick Ewing. And I said, now here's what we're going to do when they come off the side pick and roll. And Chuck goes, hold it. What do you mean hold it? What do you mean hold it? He goes, how do you guys want to guard it? And that was it. That was it. That was over. And that was that I never went into any team I was with afterwards, including back in college. I always said, how do you guys want to play it? And I said, Chuck, they haven't watched film like we have. He said, Brendan, if they're wrong, who cares? We'll fix it at a timeout.
It gives you even more credibility to do your job.
Yes.
But you also get
they own it. They own it when they tell you how they want to play it. And that was such an easy thing. Yeah, I think that was beautiful, and I love to share that. But that's what so many guys now are doing. The insecure ones don't, but the ones that are very secure do, I think.
It's just no way around it, man. You and even then it's not, you have to understand why you're doing it. And it's not to get them to like you as much as it is to make them feel involved, included, heard. And like you said, now if they're wrong, you don't throw it in their face, but it gives you so much more grace to do your job. And they can see that these decisions carry weight and have ripple effects. And, like, oh, let's blitz that. Let's trap that. And you go, all right, let's trap it. And all of a sudden it's like, bing, 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 3. This is why I wanted to ice it. You know what I mean? They're like, but they're more open after they see that team light them up. They go, coach. And they look at you like, what you think? All right, let's send it down, which is what you wanted to do in the first place. You know what I mean? Like, that's how you kind of work with those guys. But if you just disregard their level of IQ and understanding of their opponent and understanding of the game, like, how can you not include LeBron James in the prep? That would be a foolish move, not just to cater to him, but because he's a genius.
Yes.
Like, I gotta be honest. As though I may have been a 2-time head coach, LeBron James his brain is on another planet from mine. Like, because he sees the game from a lens that I can never imagine.
He's in the game.
Yeah.
He's like Mo. He's in the video game. Mo's in NBA 2K. He's in the game. He's in the game. He's in the game. And so, I can barely turn on the computer.
How can you not?
It's as close as I'm getting to playing against LeBron.
Yeah, and how can you not rely on that set of eyes, that set of feel? It's moments in time that they want you to tell them what to do. Right? There's going to be times that they want, coach, don't even ask. Just give it to us. Like, this is what we're doing. Right?
Yeah.
And having a feel for when that is and when it's time to include them is what makes the great ones great. Chuck. Right? It was days, I guarantee you, Chuck went in there and like, nah, you sons of bees. This is what we doing. This is how we doing it. And they all go, Isaiah and all of them, like, oh, man, we done pissed Chuck off. But then a lot of other days, Chuck is like, hey, Zeke, Joe, Vinny, how y'all want to get over this pick? How you want to do this with this guy? How you want to pick him up and pressure him? What you want to do with Jordan? And that give and take that, builds that trust. It builds that relationship. And it gives you what you start realizing is it arms you with more bullets for later in the season when you really do have to get after them. and hold them, they end up letting you do it more because they know you've included them in everything. You've given them the respect that they deserve. Now the trust is built. Okay, coach, you can coach the hell out of us. Like, and
Right.
so, like I said, the great ones have really done, the Chucks, the Pats, the Spos, the Pops. These guys navigate that line with stars as well as we've ever seen. Steve Kerr is like, this guy, he does it with a smile. I don't even know. I hate him. I can't smile at him. I don't like any of them. I want to kill LeBron.
He's coaching with joy, Fizz.
Right.
He's coaching with joy.
Hey, listen, he's got to smile. You don't want to look at Draymond any type of way. You have to smile.
But Pat says,
if I had Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, I'd have joy too.
Yeah. Pat told me, he said there's winning and there's misery.
That's a fact.
1,000%. He's right.
On the topic of, players having input into coverages and coaching decisions and schemes, what's your take on the Chris Paul situation with the Clippers right now, being sent home away from the team, and what the reports out there right now are because Chris Paul was, trying to get the players to change schemes that the coaching staff didn't want to, so on and so forth. What's your take on this whole situation?
I think the whole thing is messy, and I just don't understand how a lot of stuff wasn't taken care of up front on role and responsibilities. And, I can't see that they didn't tell Chris, like, look, man, this is probably going to be a situation where you don't hardly play. Because a lot of this is that stems from not playing, right? Chris needs an outlet to show he got to somehow get that out. That brain is firing on all. So you're talking about another genius, right? But his body is at a place. Maybe he can help somebody, but right now the Clippers don't feel like he can help them at that high a level to play a ton of minutes. And so that friction has probably led to him needing to voice how he feels somewhere, or correct or disagree, whatever you want to call it. And now they have a situation where they're not in the building together. And that's unfortunate, especially for such a great career. A lot of guys with the Clippers organization that I really care about and love and respect what you do,
right,
Brendan. I coached T. Lue, for 3 years in Atlanta. T. Lue is my guy. Lawrence Frank is my guy. These guys are I love them, and it's just unfortunate.
I think Fizz was right. I said, there's so many good people in that organization. I mean, Steve Ballmer's from Detroit. I knew him when he started at Microsoft. I've known JV. JV.
You should have got a couple shares, coach.
I'm not good. I can't go there because of insider trading. But we're not going there. But JVG. I mean, I just love Jeff and Stan. L. Frank is one of the real basketball geniuses as a coach. And Ty Lue. I mean, I remember when I used to prepare for L. Frank when he was with the Nets, and I was with the Knicks. And you appreciate this. I did every scout for 15 years. Every scout, 1,500 scouts. No other person. Okay, 1,500. And Lawrence had 126 plays with the Nets.
Wow.
126. I knew every freaking one of them. And I handed Chuck about 5 of them.
I was going to say, did his players know 126 of them?
They did. They were really good. Jeez, they were good. They were really. I mean, how about Jay Kidd in his prime, Vince Carter prime, and then Richard Jefferson, terrific. Kmart. They had a squad, man. They had a really squad, and he could coach. He could really coach. They would come into the Garden and beat our ass by like 25. People are booing us, and I went through it. But he was, and I had Jamal Crawford guarding Vince Carter, and I'd say I think we should change the matchups. I think so.
I'm not
We
Joe
gotta change
Crosso on a card here.
yeah, he said he was fine with it. He was fine with it, yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, I just think that, you have great leadership from Bomber and L. Frank. You have great coaching there. I hope we never find out what happened and it goes away quietly, but, it's never what it appears to be. That's all I'll say.
Talking about that Nets team, that great Nets team that you guys were just talking about, got me wondering, Fizz, who were the hardest teams or players to plan for throughout your career? Because when you were with the Grizzlies, you happened to run into a certain Golden State Warriors team that was tearing the league apart. But across your entire career, you started in 03. So who are the hardest teams and hardest players that you had to scheme for?
Dirk and Dallas for sure.
Right.
Pop and the Spurs for sure. When I was a head coach, I actually did well against Steve somehow. I think because we were so physical and grimy in Memphis that
Right.
we beat up Steph and them a little bit, and we ended up having a pretty solid record against them and against D'Antoni and Houston, two teams that was lighting up the league. I just kind of
Right.
made it a street fight, and you know how Memphis, how we could play. It was muddy. Like we can
Tony
just
Allen, shout.
pigs. We was pigs. We loved the mud. Come on in.
Yeah,
Like, get dirty with us. And so against those teams, we actually had success, which is kind of crazy. But, I think preparing for Giannis was a nightmare to prepare for. Monty Williams and the Phoenix Suns were a nightmare when they were as good as they were. When Book and not Monty were, holy cow, did they run good stuff.
They ran great stuff.
Oh,
Really, really good.
They really did. They carve you up, man. Like they executed to the highest level, like the highest level that you can execute at. I would say Frank in Indiana was a tough team in our Miami days, just because, again, they actually were like my Memphis teams. They were physical and big. Hibbert and David West and Danny Granger and Paul George, Hill, Mahimi. I can recall these rosters just because we competed so many times against them in playoffs, and we played Indiana 2 or 3 times that stretch with Miami in the playoffs. We had some great battles with them. Gave me a great deal of respect for Frank. Part of the reason why I wanted to work for him and work with him, because he was so good, in those series and playing against them. Freaking Doc and that Boston team was, oh God. Rondo was the problem, though. See, people don't realize that it wasn't. Yeah, KG and them were all great. I don't want to word that the wrong way. They were phenomenal. The problem was Rondo. He impacted winning in so many different ways for that team. And, a lot of times we made the mistake, as many other people, we backed off of him. Like letting Tom Brady just sit back there like this for an hour. Just like and he's just darting us, with Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, he just Eddie House coming off, and he just carving us up, man. And we had to learn and adjust, and we started putting a little more ball pressure on them. But that just going against them, they had us, down 3-2. And we had to go to Boston to win the game, and then come back to Miami to win the 7th game to get to that, to get to the finals that year. And so,
wow,
that's how hard it was with those teams. It wasn't a cakewalk just because we got those guys.
Rondo was a dog. I remember 2011. He takes a fall with D Wade, dislocates his elbow, and comes back and plays the rest of the game one-handed and wins.
And beats us.
Yeah. The game you just mentioned, 2012 Game 6, arguably the most iconic game of one of the most iconic games of LeBron's career. Obviously, you got the Game 7 against Golden State.
It's top 5 for sure.
But that Game 6 against Boston, what was the plan? What was the mood? What was the strategy and everything going into that? Because for context,
Dan Craig. I hope he gets a shot at being a head coach, because this dude can coach. Dan Craig was our video guy, and we're desperate. Like down 3-2 to Doc is not a fun, comfortable place to be. So, that night we got together in the hotel on the plane, and because we had to fly back to Boston. And Paul Pierce had just put the dagger in us. He called us all kind of names leaving the building. And Dan Craig goes, Coach, I know this sounds simple. He said, but here's my suggestion. I don't care what we run. He said, we can go through every play in the playbook if you want. He said, but if that ball doesn't go to LeBron at the elbow or the post at the end of every play, we will get knocked out. He said, I'm telling you right now, they cannot guard him one-on-one in these spaces. We haven't done it enough. Let's get in the shoot around. Let's run our top 8 to 10 plays, and don't let them shoot it. And let's make sure wherever LeBron asks for the ball, elbow or post, get him the ball. We went through it, looked great in shoot around. For 2 days, Bron really hadn't said a word. His responses was, for 2 days, did not talk to anybody. Maybe D-Wade, maybe. And he just was like,
locked in.
Yeah, man. And we didn't know what was going to happen. Was he showing up? We had just lost to Dallas. This could be the end of the Heat. You know, if we don't win this game, this is it. You know, and so Dan Craig and Bron, that game plan came together. As Dan was saying it in the shoot around, you could see Bron's face was just like it was like, oh yeah, you finally said what I wanted to hear, because he wanted to get at Paul Pierce so bad.
Yeah, right.
And that night he was laying down reading his book while Mike Messina was stretching him and stuff, and I kind of like, mouthed to D-Wade like, is he all right? And he goes, and he said out loud so he can hear it that I was, oh, he ready. And the locker room was quiet. And I was the coach that was always passing through the locker room. I was that coach, because that was, I had that, I could do it with him. And so he said, no, he ready. And that was it. I went down to Spo. I said, hey, if it feels like I think it feels, I'm like, stay out of the way, bro. That's all I said to him. Stay out of the way. And man, watch that game again. It's fun to watch.
That's
I
pretty
will
good.
never,
and watch it now.
ever.
Watch it through
I'm
the
a
lens.
Celtics fan. I'm never watching it.
Yeah, but if you watch his offense through the lens of what I just said and his catches and touches, and you see how
I remember
actually executed that, man, it was something to see. It was something. Juwan Howard was elbowing me the whole game. My ribs were so sore. He was just like, whoa, like, look at what he's doing. Like, it was that.
That's
it was,
awesome.
It was, and if you really want to weigh it, there's games, obviously, in championships that you got to say always are heavier. But for his career and his legacy, if he loses that game, and the Heat have to break up because 2 years in a row we can't get it done, like, that's a pretty big deal in the history of, if you look back, and look at the history of the game, that would shift a lot of stuff.
Hey, Fizz, one of the things, when you work with a Hall of Fame coach, and then, the appreciation that you have when you look back and you're going through it, it's one thing. But when you look back on it, I know I feel that way about Chuck, but I work with Chuck, I work with Yubi, I work with, Fratello, with Isaiah, with Lenny Wilkins, but when I worked with Chuck, it was like at another level of coaching because he had every aspect of the thing.
Yeah.
Well, tell me about the development of Spo, because he was so young when he and really went from third position to head honcho.
Yeah, it was
unheard of.
And then not expected. That's the other part.
Right.
Like, not really expecting that to happen at all. Like, I remember when it happened, he was just like, what?
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people was like, what? And so, one, Pat was stepping down, but two, you're replacing him with this Filipino guy that's the third assistant that came through the video room, like, everybody was like, what? And I remember the night when it happened. So I got the call from Spo talking about Boston. I'm coaching with Woody in Atlanta, and I'm a young assistant, and we're playing the Celtics team that won it that year. They won it. We're 1 versus 8. Joe Johnson became ISO Joe. Remember that series?
Sure do.
Yeah, he cooked them, but we played them to 7 and we lost. We're in like game 5 in Boston, and right as it's going across the ticker before the game, coaches are sitting back in the locker room and watching, games and getting ready for the game. And it goes across the ticker. Erik Spoelstra, new head coach of the Miami Heat, Pat Riley stepping down. My phone, zzz. I'm like, yo, because we're young. Spo was like late 30s, like maybe 40. Like we're like screaming on the phone. And he goes, look, man, I'm rooting for you. He goes, but the day your season is over, pack your stuff. You coming back.
Wow.
That's when it
That's
literally
cool.
happened like that. He got hired. He told me I'm coming home. Like the logistical stuff we took care of later. But he was like, I didn't ask Pat to hire anybody else. He's like, I got one spot to fill. I want it to be you. Ron Rothstein, myself, and Bob McAdoo. That was he filled the staff that way. And it was just like, oh man, here we go. And then watching him go from, he really handled it well. Like it was almost like he knew what he didn't know. And so he kind of, he had a humility about the way he coached. And so it was easy for him to start soaking stuff up and retaining. And the biggest part for Spo was, how do I, really build these relationships with these guys now, but I'm the guy that's got to tell them they're not playing, or I'm the guy that's telling them they're not going to get these shots, or I'm not running their play, or I got to take them out of the game, or whatever, like he's the guy now. And so that was, I think, his biggest adjustment. But that didn't even take long either. And, when you got, I always compare it to The Godfather, Michael Corleone and Vito, Spo had his consigliere right there, right next to him, whispering in his ear, like, listen, you might not want to do that. Try this. Look at this. While at the same time giving Spo enough grace to figure some stuff out for himself and give him space too, Yeah. The big thing that I always talked to Spo about early on, which he figured out quick, was, like I said, bro, you gotta, which I don't know if I took my own advice on this, but I was like, you gotta learn how to relax when it comes to when you're communicating to the higher ups, and because he was just like, I don't like this guy. I don't want to play this guy. And I was like, take a breath, bro. like just, you're working with Pat. Right, Pat's not trying to put no players on you don't want, and but that happens as a young coach. You want to be perfect, and you're so high strung. But he really figured that out early, how to contain that and how to really work, really as a tandem with Pat, and really utilizing Pat's knowledge in a way that heightened him. And Pat figured out how to communicate to Spo without making Spo feel like he's trying to puppet him.
Yes.
Pat's a strong personality as hell. Like Pat knows his stuff, and what he knows is ain't no other way to what he knows, right? But Pat figured out ways to really work with Spo on that, and like how to get information to him. Me and Pat would meet for like 15 minutes every few days, and he'd get his blue paper out and he'd be like, show that to Spo. All right, I got you. Or he'll come into my office, Fizz, let's do this. And for me, it was awesome because I'm getting 15 minutes on the board with Pat, and he's giving me all these ideas in his zone, and and it's like, holy shit, I'm keeping this for myself, yes, but I would take a couple ideas. We'll go through all of our stuff, and then I'll go, hey, Pat got a pretty good idea on the ATO. Check this out. And it was like the perfect time to feed it to Spo, where he didn't feel like, Pat's all over me, or like, and Pat figured that out. He used me as a conduit to a lot of the stuff like that. And when he had to have real talks with Spo and heavier talks, he used it then. That's when he and Spo would say, hey, let's come together. Let's talk this through. Let's figure out if we want to trade this, move this, how we want to deal with this disciplinary thing, And so I just think that Spo was a guy who really was perfect for that moment, because he understood how to navigate with Pat and navigate the Heat culture and not compromise it. And, and you're talking about, on top of all of that, the dude is a brilliant basketball mind that no one outworks. And people forget he's not just Pat's protege. He's really Stan Van Gundy's protege. Stan was the assistant that Spo was like glued to. as a young video guy, as a scout, like Stan
Right.
taught Spo the ways to work, how to view the game, how to teach the game. Like he really took the time to invest in Spo and develop in Spo before he got to that seat. And a lot of
Right.
people don't really know that or credit Stan with that. Spo does, but people don't realize that Spo's had Ronnie, Pat, and
Yep.
Stan just, you know,
Pouring into.
yeah. And he, on top of that, he's been here, like you said, his dad was in Portland, in New Jersey. He's been around the game his whole life. Like literally since he was a little bitty kid, the guy's been in the gym with NBA players. It's like JB Bickerstaff. You know, these guys,
Yes.
that's all they know is NBA gyms. You know, where other kids dream of it. Spo was in the gym rebounding for guys and like, you know, doing all of the stuff. So, you know, this is what he was made for. You know, if you ever saw a guy built for something, this guy was built for this. He was molded for it. And the coolest part about it is he didn't ask for any of it, and he's humble about all of the success.
That's awesome.
Do you know what I think is really cool is the belief that Pat Riley has in Eric Spoelstra? Because I remember there were reports that LeBron wanted Spo fired early on during his tenure in Miami.
Maybe.
Pat Riley came out and said that never happened. And then a few years later, he came out and explained how it kind of happened. And one of the minority owners of the team as well said that it happened. But what was that experience like when things weren't going great to start
Pat Riley,
the Big Three era in Miami?
Pat made it easy. They were chanting, "Bring back Pat." We were 8-9. We had just lost a home game that first year, and the crowd, literally the Heat crowd, think about if they can go back and revisit that moment, they'd probably be kicking themselves in the ass. But they're chanting, "Bring back Pat, bring back," because Pat had came back when Stan was there, and they won in 06. Well, the next day, Pat came in the office, closed the door. Spo and I think we're getting fired. We're like, it's over. Like, we're cooked for sure. And Pat comes to Spo's office, closes the door. He goes, "You guys," and he, you know, here we go. "You guys are doing a great job. I watch every practice. It is as good a practices as I've ever seen in my 30, 40 years of basketball," he said. "Don't worry about the noise. I ain't coaching this team. I don't ever want to coach a team again. You guys are the coaches. You're going to go on a winning streak here." He said, "Trust me, you're doing good stuff." He said, "You guys just don't know who's going to finish yet. When you figure that out, it's over." He went and talked to the team after that. It was a great ass chewing, basically, where he, in so many words, told all those guys, "I'll trade your ass before I fire him." That was the end of that. You remember Pat put him on the wall. He'll have him sit on all of them, line the wall. And he went down the line like, "Nah, if you think for 1 second he's going anywhere, cut it out." He's like, I'll let this whole team go before I get rid of him." And the next,
That's awesome.
we won 22 out of 23 games after that. And the
Damn.
rest was history. We went on a, we just, because our defense was spectacular. Because the only thing we did in camp was defense. But our offense was losing us games now because we hadn't put any time into it. But we got that culture in. We got those rotations in. And once we started saying, okay, this is how we're going to close games. Here's what we're going to run to close games. Here's who's going to be those guys. Everything took off. And they figured they just started balling. And that team got really close really fast, you know, and they started doing everything together. You know, and
That's
just
awesome.
like, you know, and we just saw it just kind of form. But Pat was the one that just came in and was like, and he did obviously you saw the press conference when he did what he did, but what he said to us that day and what he said to the team that day is what flipped the whole thing on its head.
Love it. Love it.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Typical
For
Pat.
real.
Typical Pat. You know, just
Yeah.
having a pulse like he hasn't you know, everybody can learn basketball and this and that, but it's just very few people that could just have their thumb on it like that and just really know people and egos and how to just push buttons, you know, that way. I remember being in the video room, a short story for you guys, but when I was in the video room, I never got to go to practice. I never saw one practice live when I was in. That's how locked down the Heat were. Like, not even the video guys running all over the gym now. I was in the video room. And I remember Spo coming back from practice, and he said, "Man, you won't believe." He said, "Man, I just saw a master at work." what are you talking about? He said, man, Pat just had a talk with Alonzo Mourning in front of our team. He said, I can't wait to see if this works. I said, what did he say? We young coaches. I'm like, what did he say? He told Zoe, because Zoe had, I don't know if you remember this, Brendan, but Zoe had a problem with the refs. Like, he was, it was every call, tech, or red fuck, F you. It was just.
He was really easy to get under his skin, like Draymond.
Woo!
Piece of cake.
I mean, and so it was starting to cost us a little bit. And Pat was kind of fed up, but he was Pat's warrior. So Pat wasn't going to disrespect him or nothing like that. But Spo said Pat told him, he said, listen, because Zoe was really starting to turn into this business guy. In Miami, he was getting all these. Pat said, let me tell you something, Zoe. This ain't just for basketball, but this is, you're a businessman, right? And, Zoe, yeah, I got this, I did. He said, okay, well, if you're a businessman, do you think you should be cursing out the real estate agent that's selling you the building that you're about to buy, or the lawyer who's hooking up the contracts, or the person who's about to sell you? He's like, do you think that's good business? Do you think that would make your business thrive or hurt? And Zoe kind of melted back in his chair, and he's like, well, your number one business is this game. And if you want to really win at this game, you're going to have to find a way to have a good relationship with these officials. Now, I'm not telling you got to kiss their ass or you got to do any of that, but you're going to figure out from a business standpoint, because you are a businessman, right? Like, talking to her like that. Man, when I tell you Zoe's text went, and it just like, it was like he hit that button. And he knew when to do it. He just like, it was like immediate change in Zoe's behavior. But he just waited and waited and waited until the right time happened, and then it's just boom. And he didn't yell at him. Supposed to say he wasn't yelling at him. He said he just was hitting that business nerve, that ego nerve. Like, you're a businessman, right? If you're a businessman, do this. Because good businessmen do this, and it was just like, damn, he figured that out. And like, he just knew that. He had the post for that, and he knew how to use the words. And he knew how to motivate. He's the great motivator. I don't know if we've had, Chuck is probably in that category, but it's only a handful of coaches that are like the great motivators. Pop is one of the great motivators. Forget tactician and all of that. Just say words to you that gets you in a mindset to want to go destroy the opponent, and do anything to win. And Pat is that. And Spo has developed that. As a head coach, I've seen some of his pre-games and his messaging, and it's just like, damn, Spo, that was good. Like, I'm ready to play. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I'm ready to get out there and get on the floor and lose balls and all of that. And that's from my standpoint in time with Pat, man, that's what it just made him special. He understood the moment really well.
Man, that's amazing, Coach. We could talk all day with all of these amazing insights, and we got to have you back on the show. I'm guessing you're probably going to be back coaching somewhere soon, but regardless of that, we want to have you back on the show because this has been an amazing conversation.
I can't say I'm not a lifer. As much as I would. It'd be fun to ride off to the sunset. This game always pulls me back, no matter what. I thought I was done coaching. I was in Utah, assistant GM to Danny and Justin Zanuck up there having a good old time, and freaking Frank Vogel and James Jones beat me over the head until they dragged me back into Phoenix into coaching. And I'm like, oh man. But then I got back in it and I'm like, I miss coaching. KD, book, and it got a chance to, you know what I mean? Like that, it's just in me, the competitive.
It's like at the start, when I said your favorite player's favorite coach, when you talk to guys around the league, they all speak so highly of you and your presence as a coach on their team. So it's credit to what you do.
I'm so lucky. You get to, like I said, you land in places, right? You don't get to pick everything. I land in USD, but I land in Miami with the big three. I land in LA with Russell and AD and Bron. I land in Phoenix with KD and Book and Brad. And, you're just lucky if you get to do this long enough to go, like you said, Brendan, the people, the coaches you worked for and all those players you came across and got to interact with, and, if you're lucky enough to do that, my biggest advice to any coach, don't waste don't waste those moments, man. You got a chance to build great bonds and relationships for a lifetime in this game. And that's probably the most rewarding part of the game that I've gotten is those relationships. More than the championships and the rings and all of that stuff is these friendships and these brotherhoods that I'm a part of that, you know, we're now, like I said, we're watching each other's kids grow. We're Spo's kids are my nephews and nieces, and my kids are their nephews and nieces. And
That's awesome.
you know, Bron checks on my kids, and KD's telling me about his kids being born. And, you know, I got a picture of me, Bron, and Bronny in their first preseason game, and I remember
Wow.
holding Bronny. Think
That's
about
crazy.
that. I used to hold Bronny as a little kid, and, you know, and so it's like, man, that's the most rewarding thing you could ever get out of any craft, whether it's, you know, I don't care what your business is. Money is money,
Right.
and all of that stuff is great. Most likely you'll fall at some point, but all of that stuff, it weathers that. It sustains that. And I've just been lucky enough to come across some of the best, man.
It's all about people, Fizz. You're one of the best. Thank you for sharing, man. This was
Appreciate you
awesome.
guys. Anytime, Brendan, you
Thank
know
you.
that. I'm always available to you.
I really appreciate it, Fizz. Thank you so
Yeah,
much. I can't wait to watch you on TV this week.
Yeah, we got to run it up again, and we'll be tuned in for sure. Fizz, we appreciate you. You guys at home, please let Coach know. Coach, I don't know if you're on social media like that. Are you
No,
active on
only
social
my
media?
wife, man. I'm a
All
smart
right,
one.
all right.
I'm the smart one, bro.
Hey,
Never
and
have
I-
ever
That's a
had
good
social
idea.
media.
I was gonna tell the fans to come and show you some love, but if you're offline, you're offline.
They
I'll
can
let them
shoot
leave you in
shots at
peace.
tell them to hit up the show. Tell them to send love to the show. That's what they
Absolutely.
do.
let
We'll put the details in the description.
Fizz is one of the. Fizz is a. Let me say this: if he was a football coach or a football player, he way outkicked his coverage with his wife.
Oh, for sure. Yes, he's right about that. That's
No, I mean that's
by
the object.
far my greatest
That's the-
accomplishment is
Yes,
the
yes.
woman that I duped into marrying me. That's for sure. Like, I pulled out all the tricks, all the stops. And finally, I think she finally just said, all right,
Yeah,
all
yeah.
right.
I mean, the biggest decision in Miami was not LeBron coming
Hey,
there.
stay
It was,
winning, Coach.
It was
Stay
her
winning.
marrying. It was her marrying Fizz when she was in Miami.
No, and listen, all those guys I just mentioned remind me of the same thing. They all, in fact, KD, this is how funny that today KD, when he called me, he said, man, I lost all my numbers. He said, I was going crazy. He said, I got my phone back. He said, but I hit your wife up on Instagram and got your phone. Because he knows she got all the rights. She got anything they need, they don't come to me. They go to her for it. So
Smart. They're smart.
yeah, man.
Well, that's
Great
beautiful.
seeing you guys.
Great to see you
Super.
too. You guys
Thanks,
at home, I
Fizz.
hope you enjoyed the episode. Make sure you subscribe to the show. We're going to keep bringing you more great guests all season long. So until next time, get buckets.